and to just intuitively know, okay, if I come here tomorrow at that time, I'm going to see that animal. Welcome to our, well, it's, I think, the third or fourth of hopefully many calls around the topic of lean by nature, which is basically creation of lean principles combined with guidances and ideas observed by nature. So we're basically just exploring that topic of how we can use nature to learn possibly what nature can teach us on improving certain processes, or yeah, basically improving anything, personal life, professional life, teams, whatever. So it's about, and also welcome whoever joined now. We're talking about lean by nature. And first, before we start, I want you to really take a deep breath and leave all the other things and thoughts and stresses that you might have brought from the everyday tasks that happened before, to just kind of breathe and arrive here and allow yourself to really be present with our call, and allow yourself be present within you, because that's like every minute that we spend is important, and to make ourselves aware of that is also important. So yeah, breathe in. Thank you. So now we can start. My name is Elizabeth, and I'm here with my colleague Aman. And today we're going to talk about how can we analyze data or understand trends based on the lean principles, but also what nature can help us with. So the call is going to be structured in a way that first we're going to look at the lean principles around that topic, and then look at how nature might do it. And then there's a space for questions as well in the end. And also, if you have questions in between, just write them in the chat, and we'll see where we can fit them in. And so we had a few calls already, and last time we talked about the tracking phase. So how can we track improvements? How can we collect data that show us where we were and where we could go, and how we can make sure that the data integrity is maintained, to actually see, okay, well, what's like, how can we succeed? But I think, Aman, you can do a lot better job in kind of doing a recap of whatever we covered already and what we're going to talk about today. So over to you, Aman.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Absolutely. So I think this is just an exploratory journey, trying to correlate the lean principles into our real life, and try to benefit from those quality principles and how we can really deploy some of them in our personal life and help improve as well. That's the basic aspect of these calls that we're having. And in the last few calls, as Elizabeth mentioned, we started with a very simple, improvement methodology that is usually followed in organizations, where we start with the define phase, where we define what the problem is, and we talked about that in our previous calls. And once we define the problem, we typically start collecting some baseline data to see where we are right now, and where we need to be and what's the gap. And that's the called the data collection phase, or the measure phase, if you will, as per different quality frameworks. And this phase really scares people off, because the moment you bring the data aspect, people say, hey, this is very technical and it's very complicated. And I think last time we talked about how simple it can be to collect the data, if you start well with a data collection plan, figure out what data you need to collect. And you just need discipline to continuously track that data. And it doesn't take too much time to really capture it on a day-to-day basis. And once you are off that tough phase of data collection, then comes the fruit in the terms of analysis, and which is what we are going to talk about today. When you collect data religiously, in a disciplined way, over a period of time, it will tell you the historical trend in a beautiful manner. And this is that phase where we have to show you some examples. So I think this is most appropriate by sharing some examples of what an analysis could be. So what we are going to do is, we are going to share a few examples from professional life as well as personal life, of how a very simple data collection process can help us do some meaningful analysis. So, Elizabeth, if I may request you to pull up the analysis deck. And I'd just like to share a couple of actual real life examples on data collection, and how the analysis can be simple and help us understand the historical trends.
Okay,
And
so you
while
should
while
be
Elizabeth
able
is
to
pulling up the
see.
deck. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Elizabeth. Yes. So as we get into the deck, I would like to quickly define the word analysis from my perspective. Again, a very simple definition is, I would say, pictorially representing the data. As the saying goes, that a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I would say that the discipline of collecting the data over a period of time, and the moment we are able to convert that data into a picture, it the whole story reveals itself beautifully. And that's what we are going to share today, some of the examples with you. So if I may request you to move to the next slide, Elizabeth.
Mhm.
So this is an example of a kind of a training organization, and as I said, a very simple example where the data regarding the trainings that the organization does uh, was captured in a very simple format. And last time we talked about the data collection plan, which essentially means that we need to really track all the circumstances under which the event has occurred. In this case, the event was a training, so you need to really capture like when the training was conducted, what was the topic, what category the topic was, and what was the location. So that's something which the organization can decide. And at this time, the more comprehensive you make it, the better it will be for you during the analysis phase. This all comes under the data collection plan. And if we don't plan to collect the data the right way, then we might end up going back in circles, and coming back to data collection and then the analysis. Because the moment you start doing analysis, you realize that you don't have sufficient data. So that's why it's important to think through what are the circumstances you need to capture for the data collection plan. So this is a very small snapshot of the whole kind of initiative, and this was captured, and this is, by the way, real data, and it was captured for over a period of 3 years. And around 300 data points were captured. And you can well imagine that if this is, each entry is a training, it hardly takes a minute to update at what date the training was and what is the topic. It doesn't take too much time for each data entry. But when it builds up with the data, then it becomes a really meaningful. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to share some of the analysis that followed this simple data collection. So if I may request you to move to the next slide, Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
So this is called like the bar chart, and it really displays the trend of the training, the number of trainings each month um, over a period of like 3 years or 2-3 years since the time the data was captured. So I can say that only just to keep it simple, I want to say that this is just a mirror of what the reality was. So data doesn't lie; it just portrays what really happened, and then it's up to you to interpret it and analyze. How you want to really review the analysis. So here, if you look at, I'm not going to go into detail of this, but just a snapshot that the maximum number of training sessions that's plotted on the y-axis, that was like 19, and that happened somewhere in the month of July of 2019, and that was the maximum that was touched, and the trend increased from August 17 to August 19. There was a dip. This is just pictorial representation of the table that you saw earlier, and it's up to the owners to really data owners to decide or define how they want to use this analysis to make meaningful decisions going forward. If I may ask you to move to please to the next slide. This is another view of the analysis that comes from the same tracker. It tells the total number of trainings, how are they categorized between the technical and the behavioral, and one can clearly see that 60% is behavioral training. So if the organization wants to hire some trainers, they know where what kind of trainers they want to hire. They want to hire behavioral because that's like has a higher weightage in terms of training. So this is how the data can be used to make meaningful business decisions. If I may have you move to the next slide. And that's about the level wise distribution. So almost 50% of the trainings were conducted for the white collared the staff, and the balance 50% were for the workers and the supervisors. So this is just a distribution, and this is again a pie chart, the way of representing the data. So this is, if you see, these are all pictures, beautiful pictures, and they tell you really what's going on with the trainings where we captured the data in the first place. If I may have you move to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is this is the location wise. There were different locations where the trainings were done, and if you can look at, there are two locations which really stand out, and almost 66% of the trainings, almost 2/3 of the trainings were done within these two locations. So this is all the various aspects of the training that one wants to look at to be able to take business decisions. Let's move to the next one, and I think this should be the last one on this example. This is on the topics that were taken, how many times the topic was repeated. So if you look at it, there were two topics that really stand out, that were really repeated month on month, and they had the highest frequency, and this is a distribution of how many times a particular topic was repeated during these 3-year tenure. So this is what worked for the organization. This is how they were able to draw meaningful analysis using the data capture that, I would like to emphasize, takes hardly a minute to update for each data entry. So that's the fruit of the whole thing, whole effort, if you will. So at this point, I'd like to change gears, and I'd like to share some example from personal life, because usually we do data collection in our professional life, but I'm a firm believer that we can also use it to kind of improve our personal life as well. So if you can move to the next slide, which is talking about a personal example here. This is again some real data of a person who is tracking the, the days on which he or she went for exercise, and he's just tracking that on a calendar, and next to that is the weight which he's monitoring, you know, for his own purpose. So it's a very simple data collection activity, and that's what I want to emphasize. Data collection need not be elaborate. It can be a very simple check in the box calendar where you just you know, record the data entry. And the important point to note here is that the circumstances under which the data is captured each day should be consistent. For example, in this case, the weight was calculated only on the days that you know, the person went for exercise, and that was taken after the exercise was complete. So if we are taking at the weight at different times of the day, then it's like comparing apples and oranges. So in order to have consistency, I think it's important that we capture the data consistently. So this was done again for almost 3 months. All it took was just a tick mark on the calendar and the weight recorded there. And if you look at the next slides, that will be the fruit of the whole data collection, which is telling you the trend over the last 3 months, roughly, if you will, of how the weight kind of, you know, changed. And at a glance, you can make out that the minimum weight during that period was 79.8 kgs and the maximum was 83.8, and it's slightly trending in the upward direction. So that's up to the you know, person who is, or the data owner, to interpret the results, whether they want to gain weight so they're in the right direction, and if they want to lose weight, then probably they need to do more action. So it's up to the data owner to really, you know, interpret it. And that's why I want to emphasize that data is just a mirror. It will tell you what has happened. The way you interpret the data is up to you. So that's the beauty of you know, this analysis. And all we are doing is presenting the data in a meaningful picture. And that's the whole fun. It's like, you know, bringing fun into the daily routine. So if I may have you move to the next slide, please. Now this is again the same data which we captured, just the you know, tick mark on the calendar on the date the exercise was done, and it was also you know, the weight was calculated. Yeah. So this is the day of the week wise analysis, that how many days of the week the person went for exercising. And if you look at it, the Mondays and Tuesdays are the you know, the highest, which means that he or she was pretty consistent going on Mondays, Tuesdays. Next comes Fridays, followed by Wednesday, Thursday, uh, and the exercise routine was also followed over the weekend, as you can see, Saturdays and Sundays. So this is again, some people prefer to take the weekend off, so for them the bar for Sunday will be pretty low, but it's up to the owner, you know, the data owner, to interpret the results. So this is all coming from that single data entry that you mark on the calendar. If I may have you move please to the next slide. This is the number of days exercised month on month. So if you look at this data, it says that in the month of July, 68% of the days the exercise was done, 21 out of 31 days. However, that dipped to almost 42%, less than 50% in the month of August and September. So this is where, you know, the person can really analyze, hey, you know, I need to really pick up on my exercise days, and I need to bring it there, you know, kind of frequency more than 50%. So this is how a simple data collection can help you analyze the situation meaningfully and be able to take you know, decisions for the future. So that's on the personal aspect. And I just want to conclude by last 2 slides on another personal example. If I may have you move to the next slide. This is a very, this activity is, by the way, linked to, you know, these lean by nature calls. This is the number of calls it took for us to kind of get going. So this is a very, very simple example. We are just tracking on which day did the meeting happen, you know, the internal meeting. And it just says that, okay, we had 18 meetings so far. These were the dates. And let's look at how this very simple data capture helps us to analyze some meaningful information. So if I can have you move to the next slide, which happens to be last but one. This is the month-wise number of calls we had. So we started in June with almost 2 calls a month, which is almost once in a fortnight, and now it's the frequency is increasing, coming almost to weekly. So it's a healthy trend. Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, that the frequency of calls is increasing. So I think we're on the right track. So this is just a way of representing that's data that we captured. And the last slide, if you can just move to the last slide here, the next one. This is the gap between the calls, the number of days gap. And if you can see, there was only one instant that there was 28 days gap between 2 calls. Other than that, the meetings happened almost consistently between, almost 2 weeks, every other week. And then now the frequency is almost weekly. So this is kind of the analysis of from a very simple data collection that I shared. So I just like to conclude by saying that the data doesn't lie. So the picture that you see here, this is the truth, and it's up to us to analyze this historical data to take some decisions in the present so that we can improve the future process. So that's all from my side, Elizabeth, and back to you.
Thank you so much. And just letting you know, we want to stick to our time frame, so we don't really have that much time left. But I just really want to say thank you so much for that sharing. And it's interesting to see, okay, yeah, we have all that data and analysis. How does nature do it? Because nature is improving all the time. It's the whole evolving and fitting into some animals that are adapting more and more to a certain surrounding. That's constant improvement, basically. And even also nature connected people living outside in clan, they're sticking with certain traditions because they're helpful in some way, and they leave out the traditions, or they kind of phase out the traditions that don't work and stick with the ones that are helping in some way, even if it's like they're doing certain things that are helping the community or grow together, or at some level they're meaningful. So that's why they stick with it. Nature just only keeps the things that are helpful and leaves out all the rest, because that's just it's very straightforward, and they just basically can't afford to do more than what they're doing. And especially looking at the analysis part of that whole topic, it's kind of connected to the tracking that we did before. We looked, I shared in our last call that when we're tracking in nature, we're looking at a sign of an animal that came by and looking, okay, well, how old it is, what animal was it, stuff like that. But the analysis is looking at the whole picture. So it's like, okay, where did it go through? Why did it choose that path and not another? Why was it even going there? Did it want to, they want to drink, or they wanted to hunt an animal or run from an animal? Where is their home? Where are they sleeping? Are they just traveling through? What is the connection also to the other animals and plants? Maybe they went there because they prefer that plant to another. So it's like getting the whole picture. And to really analyze is to see that whole picture on the one hand, and really observe everything of how it's connected, but also tune into it. So it's not so much because the tracking in the first place, they didn't collect like numbers and figures. It was more about observation and seeing how it changed over time, over days, over hours, over months, or whatever time. And so by observing all of that, and then tuning into that, we're tuning into our intuition. And that part, it's kind of, there are so many senses in our body that we're not even aware of, that are all playing a part in that. And that then helps us in a way. That's kind of, for me, a part of the intuition, that we then know, okay, that's the kind of track that they're going that way. And to just intuitively know, okay, if I come here tomorrow at that time, I'm going to see that animal. And it's just that kind of tuning into that whole picture of that whole story of what's happening around me, that's helping me understand everything kind of. So that's what I can share around, also what nature can share about analysis, and how we can be that part of that, being that part of the process. So Aman, if you have something more, and also if there are any more questions, we still have a minute to maybe talk about something, or share what we're going to talk about next time.
Sure. Yeah, I'd just like to add a quick point on what you mentioned about the intuition. This analysis is just half of the story. When the business decisions are taken, it's important to keep this data in mind. It is historical trends, uh, but the intuition equally helps us to take the right decision. Even if the data is saying that we are trending wrong, but we know that we are on the right direction. So, these merging of the intuition and the data analysis, I think that is the perfect combination to take meaningful business decisions. So, thank you, Elizabeth. That makes perfect sense. And on that, we were talking about the next calls. We already had us 3 calls already before this, and this is the 4th. And in case, of course, Elizabeth, you can share the link of the website that we have. And the next call, that's going to be 2 weeks from now, we're going to talk about the improve. So once you do the analysis, then what are the steps you take to really improve upon using the data and the intuition? That's what we're going to talk about in the next call 2 weeks from now. So back to you, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Yeah, I posted the link in the chat, and I will also put it in the comments for the video that's gonna be uploaded. I'm also gonna send out all that information also via email, that you're already on the list. You get the additional information on how to join also the next call and see the other ones, and yeah, so that you can get the lay of the land, so to speak.
Wonderful.
Okay, so thank you so much for joining, and thank you, Aman, for really explaining all, like, how important it is to analyze the data that we collected. And I'm already looking forward to next time.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
So have a good
Absolutely.
day.
Good day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.